Hello everyone! Welcome to our podcast. But before we go to our podcast, let us introduce ourselves first. My name is Aurelia Salam Ayustyo with the number 123251007.
And my name is yemima chrisneyta with student number 123051009. But before we start, let me ask you a question.
Oh, a question already. I
Mhm.
like this.
Yes, when you hear the phrase Middle Ages literature, what comes to your mind first? Knights, castles, dragons, old-fashioned language?
Or maybe long poems, religious stories, or brave heroes fighting monsters.
Exactly, and today we're going to unpack all of that. We'll talk about that, but what Middle Ages literature is, why it matters, and why so many of its ideas are still alive in modern stories.
So, if you ever wonder where fantasy stories got their inspiration and why medieval texts are still studied in school, stay with us.
This is going to be a journey through history, storytelling, morality, and imagination.
Let's begin.
So, Oral, let's start simple. What exactly do we mean by Middle Ages literature?
Great question. Middle Ages literature refers to literature written during the medieval period, which lasted from roughly the 5th century to the 15th century.
Wow, that's a very long period, almost 1,000 years.
Yeah, so it's not just one style or one type of writing, it includes many kinds of texts from different centuries, countries, and cultures.
So, if someone thinks medieval literature is only about knights in armor, that's only part of the story.
Exactly, it also includes religious writings, legends, poems, allegories, moral tales, and even early forms of drama.
Wow, that already sounds more diverse than many people expect.
It really is, and that diversity is one of the reasons medieval literature is so interesting.
Oh, so okay, let's zoom out for a moment. What was life like during the Middle Ages?
Well, life was very different from today, of course.
Mhm.
Society was mostly organized through the feudal system.
That's a system where with kings, nobles, knights, and peasants, right?
Yes, kings were at the top, and nobles controlled land, knights served them, the peasant worked the land.
So literature often reflected that social structure.
Definitely. Many stories praise loyalty, bravery, service, and noble behavior because those values were important in medieval society.
And what about religion?
Religion was central. The church had enormous influence over education, political, art, and daily life.
So it makes sense that many medieval texts are religious or moral in nature.
Exactly. A lot of literature from this period asks questions like how should we live? What is a sin? What happens after that? How can a person be saved?
That it already sounds much more serious than just entertainment.
It was entertainment, but it was also instruction, reflection, and sometimes spiritual guidance.
Oh, so can we break the Middle Ages into smaller parts?
Yes, usually historians divide it into three sections: the early Middle Ages, the High Middle Ages, and the Late Middle Ages.
So what happened in the early Middle Ages?
This was the period after the fall of the Roman Empire. Europe was less centralized, and education was mostly kept in monasteries and churches.
So literature in that period was mainly religious?
Mostly, yes.
Oh.
There were prayers, hymns, saints' life, and oral tradition being preserved.
And the High Middle Ages?
That was a time of growth. Cities expanded, universities were founded, and literature became more varied.
So this is when you start seeing more epic poems and romance?
Exactly, this period produced many of the great medieval stories that we still study until today.
And the Late Middle Ages?
That period was marked by crises like war, plague, and social tension, but it also produced some of the most powerful works in medieval literature.
So even in difficult times, creativity keep going.
Absolutely.
Okay, so here's something that I find fascinating. Many people in the Middle Ages couldn't read,
Right. So, literature was often performed aloud.
oh, that means storytelling was very important.
Very important. Poets and storytellers use rhythm, repetition, and rhyme to help audience remember the stories.
So the texts were designed for the ear, not just the eye.
Yes, that's why medieval reading often has a musical quality.
Oh, it makes me think of people gathered in a hall listening to a storyteller,
That was a real part of medieval culture. Storytelling was social, not private.
which means literature was also shared experience.
Yes, and that shared quality helps stories travel across regions and generations.
Okay, so let's talk about what Middle Ages literature unique. If someone gave you a random medieval text, what should you should look for?
First, you should look for teaching. A lot of medieval literature is didactic.
Oh, meaning it wants to teach a lesson.
Exactly, a story might warn against pride, greed, betrayal, or laziness.
Second, I'd say symbolism,
Yes, medieval texts often use symbols to represent bigger ideas,
like a journey symbolizing life, or light representing goodness.
or,
Goodness.
or a monster representing evil, fear, and spiritual danger.
What else?
Religion. It's
Ooh.
everywhere. Medieval writers often focus on sin, redemption, heaven, hell, saints, and divine justice.
And chivalry too.
Definitely. Knights were supposed to be brave, loyal, and honorable, so many stories celebrate those ideals.
And sometimes the stories test those ideals.
Yes, because medieval literature often asks, can a person really live up to the ideal, or do human weaknesses always get in the way?
That's a great question, actually. Even modern readers can relate to that. Now, let's move to themes. What are the big ideas that come up again and again?
One of the biggest is heroism and chivalry.
So, like bravery, honor, loyalty, and service.
Yep, that's right. And another major theme is religion and morality.
That includes salvation, sin, and spiritual growth.
And the third theme is love and courtly romance.
Oh, I like that one because it sounds romantic, but it's not always simple.
Exactly, courtly love is often idealized, emotional, and distant. It's not always about practical relationship. It's about admiration, longing, and noble behavior.
Another theme is mortality.
Yes, medieval life was unpredictable, so that is a constant presence in the literature.
And that gives the writing a serious tone.
It does. There is also loyalty and betrayal, faith, justice, and the tension between earthly life and spiritual life.
So medieval literature asks a lot of big questions.
It really does. That's one reason it's still worth studying.
Now let's imagine we're in a library of medieval texts. What kinds of book would we find?
A lot of different ones. One major genre is epic poetry.
Epic poems tell heroic stories on a grand scale, right?
Yes, they usually feature battles, noble warriors, and important cultural values.
What's another genre?
Romance. In medieval literature, romance often means adventure stories involving knights, quests, and noble women.
Not just love stories in modern sense.
Right, and another genre is allegory, where the story has a deeper symbolic meaning.
Like every character or event standing for someone else.
Exactly, then we have religious literature, like sermons, saints' life, prayers, and biblical interpretation.
And folk literature, which includes legends, ballads, and traditional ideas.
That variety makes medieval literature feel like a whole world rather than one category.
So now let's focus on epic poetry for a moment. What is the most famous Medieval epic in English literature.
That will be Beowulf.
Most students hear that name at some point, but many still don't know the full story. Can you give us a quick version?
Of course, so Beowulf is a heroic warrior who traveled to help King Hrothgar. Hrothgar's hall is being attacked by a monster named Grendel.
Classic medieval problem, a monster ruining everyone's peace.
Yes, Beowulf fights and defeats Grendel, then later fights Grendel's mother, and much later, when he is older, he fights a dragon.
The last battle sounds intense.
It is. It's also tragic because Beowulf dies in the process.
Oh, so the poem is not just about victory.
No, and that's why this is so powerful. It celebrates bravery, but it also shows that even great heroes are mortal.
Oh, I like that tension. It makes the hero feel human.
Exactly, Beowulf is strong, but he is not immortal.
So, what do you think Beowulf teaches us?
It teaches several things, I guess. First, it praise courage and loyalty.
Oh,
And second, it shows the importance of reputation and honor. And third, it reminds us that glory is temporary.
that sounds a little sad.
It is, but it's also realistic. Medieval people lived with the understanding that life was fragile.
So, the poem combines heroism with sadness.
Exactly.
Oh.
That combination is one of the reasons it has lasted so long.
Okay, let's move to a different kind of medieval work. The Canterbury Tales by Geoffrey Chaucer.
Ah, yes, one of the most famous works in English literature.
So, why is Chaucer so important?
Because he wrote in English at a time when many serious writers used Latin or French, that helped English become a respected literary language.
So, he wasn't just telling stories, he was shaping the language itself.
Exactly, and the Canterbury Tales is a brilliant because of the way it shows different social classes and personalities.
It's like a medieval group portrait.
That's a great way to put it. Pilgrims from different walks of life travel together and tell stories.
And its story reflects the speaker's personality.
Often, yes, authors use humor, irony, and satire to make the characters feel alive.
So the book is not only entertaining but also socially observant.
Very much so. Sauter notices human flaws, but he does it in a clever and often playful way.
Now, can we break down why the Canterbury Tales is still so famous?
Sure. First, it gives us a wide view of medieval society.
With all kinds of people, not just nobles.
Exactly. Second, it shows how storytelling can reveal character.
The kind of story someone tells says something about who they are.
Yes. Third, it mixes comedy with serious moral ideas.
That makes it very modern.
And fourth, it captures the language and rhythm of Middle English in a way that helps shape later English literature.
So Chaucer is important both as a writer and as a cultural figure.
Definitely.
Okay, let's shift to Italy and talk about Dante Alighieri.
A giant of world literature.
His masterpiece, The Divine Comedy, is one of the most important allegorical works ever written.
It follows Dante's journey through hell, purgatory, and heaven.
Oh, that already sounds intense.
It is, but the journey is also symbolic. It represents the soul's movement toward understanding and salvation.
So it's not just a travel story?
Not at all.
Oh.
It's a spiritual and philosophical vision of the universe.
And every section has meaning.
Yes, Dante used the structure of the afterlife to explore sin, justice, repentance, divine love, and human destiny.
That sounds very deep.
It is, and that's why the Divine Comedy is still studied so heavily today.
A lot of people hear the word allegory and think it sounds complicated, but can you explain it simply?
Sure, an allegory is a story where the surface meaning and the deeper meaning work together.
So one thing stands for another thing.
Yes, in the Divine Comedy, Dante's journey is literal in the poem, but it also represents a moral and spiritual journey.
That makes reading medieval literature feel like solving a puzzle.
In a way, yes,
Wow.
but not a random puzzle. The symbols are there to help readers think about life, morality, and faith.
So allegory is not just decoration, it's part of the message.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. Now let's talk about something many people love. Arthurian legends.
Oh yes, King Arthur, the Knights
Hmm.
of the Round Table, Camelot, and the Holy Grail.
These stories feel almost magical.
They do, and that is part of their appeal. They combine adventure, romance, horror, and honor and mystery.
What do these legends usually focus on?
They often focus on noble leadership, loyalty among knights, quest for sacred objects, and the danger of temptation and betrayal.
So they're not just action stories.
No, they also ask what makes a good king, what makes a loyal knight, and what happens when ideals collide with human weakness.
Oh, that's why the stories stay interesting even now.
Exactly. They are exciting, but also they carry moral weight.
Who helped preserve these Arthurian stories for later generations?
One important figure is Thomas Mallory, who wrote Le Morte d'Arthur.
Oh, what do you do exactly?
He collected, retold, and organized many Arthurian legends into a single influential work.
So he helped give the stories a lasting form.
Yes, without writers like Mallory, many of these tales may not have survived in the way we know them today.
That shows how medieval literature was both creative and preservative.
That's a good point. Writers were not just inventing new stories, they were also keeping old stories alive.
Now let's go back to love for a moment. Medieval love is very different from modern romance, right?
Yes, especially in courtly love literature.
How could you describe it?
It's often idealized, formal, and full of longing. A knight might serve a lady with devotion and respect, often from a distance.
That sounds very poetic.
It is, but it can also be frustrating and tragic because the love is often impossible or unfulfilled.
So the feeling matters more than the actual relationship.
Often, yes, the ideal itself becomes more important.
And this influenced troubadour poetry too.
Absolutely, troubadours were poets and musicians who wrote and sang about love, honor, and noble behavior.
So medieval love literature is really a mix of art, emotion, and social ideals.
Exactly. And
Since religion was such a huge part of the Middle Ages, how did it shape literature?
in almost every way, readers often explore human sinfulness, divine judgment, forgiveness, and salvation.
So stories were not just about what happens in life, but also what happens after life.
Yes, many works were meant to guide the reader morally and spiritually.
That explains why saints' life and sermons were so popular.
And why even secular works often have a moral message embedded in them.
So a story about knight fighting a dragon could still be about spiritual struggle.
Exactly, medieval writers often layer meaning into their stories.
Now I want to ask something practical. How does medieval writings actually sound like?
It depends on the text, but it often sounds formal, rhymatic, and symbolic.
Why so rhythmic?
Because many texts were meant to be spoken or heard aloud, rhythm and repetition help people to remember them.
And language-wise, were these texts written in Latin?
Some were, but especially religious ones. But over time, readers use more vernacular language like English, French, Italian, and others.
Oh, that must help more people connect with literature.
Definitely, it also helped develop national literary traditions.
So medieval literature was part of the growth of local identities too.
Yes, very much so.
Okay, let's be honest. Some students think medieval literature is old, confusing, and hard to relate to.
True, but once you look closely, it becomes very relatable.
Because it talks about human fears and hopes.
Exactly. It asks timeless questions. What is courage? What is justice? What is a good life? How do we face death? How do we balance duty and desire?
Those are still modern questions.
That's why medieval literature matters. It helps us understanding not only the past but also ourselves.
And it reminds us that storytelling has always been a way for people to make sense of the world.
We also can't ignore how much the Middle Ages shaped modern culture.
Absolutely, vanity books and movies borrow a lot from medieval stories.
Dragon, castles, magical quests, cursed kingdom, nobles warriors, all of that has medieval roots.
And even some video games use medieval settings and themes.
Yes, and many modern writers are inspired by Beowulf, Arthurian legend, and epic poetry.
Ooh, so medieval literature didn't disappear, it transformed.
Exactly, so its ideas still live on in new forms.
Let's do a quick recap in a more interactive way. I'll say a theme, and you tell me what it reminds you of.
Sounds fun, let's do it.
Heroism.
Knives, bravery, and epic battles.
Hmm. Religion.
Salvation, morality, and divine justice.
Love.
Courtly devotion, longing, and romance.
Allegory.
A story with deeper symbolic meaning.
Chaucer.
Humor, social commentary, and Middle English storytelling.
Dante.
A spiritual journey through the afterlife.
Beowulf.
A heroic poem about courage, monster, and mortality.
Perfect. That was actually a very nice way to remember the key ideas.
If we step back, Middle Ages literature gives us a window into a world where faith, honor, and storytelling were deeply connected.
It shows us how people in the past understood love, death, duty, and the meaning of life.
And even though the language and settings are old, the ideas are still powerful.
That's why these works continue to be read, studied, and adapted.
They are part of the foundation of Western literature.
And in many ways, they are also part of modern popular culture.
So that wraps up our interactive discussion on Middle Ages literature.
We hope this episode helped you not only understand the topic but also feel more connected to it.
If you remember one thing, remember this. Medieval literature is not just old writing.
It is a living record of human imagination, values, and struggle.
Thank you so much for your attention and thank you so much for listening to our podcast.
Thank you for joining us on this journey through castles, quests, poems, and legends and ideas. Until next time.
Goodbye, everyone.
everyone.